welcome to the Q&A for tonight's early look at this beautiful film, TRIGAL. And we are fortunate to have with us for our Q&A, Paola Astorga. Not only is she an incredibly talented producer and curator, she's also a longtime friend. Thank you for being here with us tonight, Paola, and sharing some of the backstory of the creation of TRIGAL.
Thank you very much, Sarah. It is quite a pleasure to be with you, and I hope you really enjoyed the film.
Yes, so I think, so Paola and I were chatting a little bit before, rolling camera on this Q&A, and I was sharing with Paola that I'm really so pleased to have discovered this film because frankly, because it has not been in any of the, quote unquote, big film festivals yet, I hadn't discovered it. And I find that it's very rare that I really, because I work in the business, it's very rare that I really have this sense of discovery anymore. So it was really quite exciting to find this little gem of a film through our mutual friend, Jimena, who is a creative executive and also producer who we know from the film festival world. And it was, it made me think a lot about the state of film festivals and this business that this beautiful film has, is still finding its way. So I'm really excited that our audience was able to screen it tonight. So, so we're going to talk about a few different things. I'm curious to know more about the film and share with our audience. So the first question is, how did it come together? How did you and this very talented filmmaker come together? And what was the genesis of the project?
Thank you very much, Sarah. And I have to say thank you to everybody and to mention that it's the first time that it was screened in the United States or for an American audience, which I think is quite an honor for me and with this lovely audience from this film club. So we started the film 7 years ago. I met Annabelle through a friend that my friend told me, you have to meet this girl. She's Argentinian, but she has been living in Mexico more than 25 years. She had a previous experience only as a writer. She wrote a lot. She's a script writer, pretty good, with a very, I will say this, but with a lot of experience, but she wanted to direct and she prepared herself And then this friend introduced her to me. And once I read the script, because I have to say something, it's an opera prima, but you could be how amazed it is, which is written is on screen. I mean, the images, the sensation, the dialogues, she really shot for her first time. I mean, there is no any improvisation. But so I read the script and I found it really original because in terms of feminine desire, I think, and this idea of consent and the first time you fall in love, I thought there was something really fresh. And I will say also something very strange, but I'm Mexican and we live in Mexico, but we don't talk about certain things. I mean, it was a script that was not written by a Mexican writer. It was written by someone more open, and the idea of discovering your sexuality, your period, your first love, this fantasy, and you really don't know anything and you don't have sexual education. And in that line of ignorance, there is something so human and so contemporary that I thought this is a very good script. So we started, we did it only with Mexican public funds. And we had at the end, because we started shooting and it was the COVID period. So we had to start and it was so expensive to go back to Sonora in the north of Mexico where we shot, where we have these beautiful wet fields because that wet fields are only in that region of Mexico. We have other types of wet, but not that one, which is that golden, beautiful that you saw.
Super cinematic, yeah.
Yes. And we started seeing films like Days of Heaven and this kind of references. Understanding which wit we wanted, no? Yes. And then, yes, we spent 3 years like finding the money. And then we start shooting on the 2020. Once we were shooting, the COVID came. and then we have to stop like 4 months. But the girls, we really find them in this moment when you are in between 13 and 14 years and you're growing up. So it was like something ticking behind my head that the girls were growing up. So we continue in the same 2020 in July. That was super complicated. Vaccines was not were not ready in Mexico. So it was like really like a challenge.
Right. So did you have to pause production?
Yes. And then
Wow.
we shot on the 2020, and then we stopped the film 1 year because I spent with all the COVID thing, all the money for post. So we had to apply to another fund, and finally we finished it last year. And it's just beginning its public life, as you mentioned.
Right. So yeah, what a, you know, I know that so many filmmaking professionals had to be incredibly strong and resourceful during COVID, and it sounds like you were one of them. So, you know, it's I wonder, did you have some reprieve because it was so much outdoor shooting, or did that make any difference for you?
No, you can be, I mean, for us was fantastic because we never got enough money to go back to Sonora, and the wheat, it only grows during the winter. So I found another field in another state, which is Puebla, and it's amazing. I mean, in this idea of cinema, which is time and space, we like this redesigned our own geography. And it's amazing, Sarah, because we are in 2 states, 2 kilometers away, one from the other.
Right.
And the film, I mean, the editing is you jump from Puebla to Sonora to Puebla to Sonora. I mean, cut behind cut.
I would never guess.
Yes. Yes. So
Really
that was, and that was a challenge. I remember Annabelle, the director, when I told her the first time, you know, maybe we are not able to go back to our original plan and maybe we can find another locations. And she was telling me like, but Paula, I'm not Scorsese. I can't do that things. I can make a film in New York and London and make it. And I said, yes, you can. Yes, we both can. And our team, we can. And our actresses are growing up. So we are going to lose everything we shot in Sonora, which was all the house and the wet fields. And then we decided to go back, and all the rest of locations were shot in, I mean, the ways, everything was in another state, and it worked. Yes, was very challenging, but the magic of cinema.
Yeah, absolutely. I never would have known that if you didn't tell me. So, speaking of the screenplay, which, you know, I'm not surprised to hear that it was so impressive to you, because, you know, one of the many positive things I thought about the film when I was watching it was like, wow, this film very much feels like cinema at its best, but it also had very much a literary vibe. And, you know, really feeling like this sort of, as you said, very human, but like a fable of coming of age and adolescence, and like really, you know, plumbing like the big ideas sort of surrounding this very specific experience of life. And I was very curious about, you know, you mentioned before we started recording, we were talking a little bit about the time and the place. And I think part of the reason why it feels so literary is it feels almost you know, it's very, you feel this rural sentiment, you're surrounded by natural beauty, but it feels like it could be almost any time. So if you could talk a little bit about that creative choice of the timelessness.
Yes. And it was like because we wanted to make like a contemporary film, because we really think that this lack of communication and these structural families where silence and lies remain, and new generations are unable like to get, no, I mean, this information, and you fell in love and you have a desire and you have it in your skin, and you don't have really like a way to go through it when you're a young woman or a girl. I mean, they are teenagers. They were one, Emilia, which plays Sofia, she was 13 years old, and Abril, the more Lolita cousin.
Yes.
She plays Cristina. She was 14 years old. And we wanted that. We wanted something that really make us think about this coming of age through sexuality, becoming a lady, becoming a teenager, because you are a girl and then you are a teenager and then you are a woman and everything is so fast and it's so difficult. And in that space of ignorance, lack of communication,
Naivete.
silence,
Yeah.
yes, we didn't want cell phones, because the idea was that it was like a place to discover themselves. So if they would have cell phones, it wouldn't be the same. So we kept like this timeless thing, thinking a little bit on the 90s, but I think that the problem is like from all the time. I mean, from the 20th century and from the 21st century, in these environments, the communication is not something flowing. The lack of communication, the role of men, and the male character was, I think, the most difficult one, because we didn't want him to be like an abusive, or like, I
Like the
mean, they
villain.
are playing the game. He's just there. He's a guy from the country that doesn't know anymore. He just feels that these girls are beautiful and they want to be with me. I'll take my chance. So I mean, this idea of consent was super contemporary, but also from forever. I mean, at the end, this situation when you are with a guy and you're super young and you're understanding your feeling, your sensorial thing, because you desire some things, but you don't know exactly what are you doing. And there are this guy telling you, you are here for a reason, and nothing that you don't want will happen. No, I mean, this seductive, empowering thing of men when you are young and you want, but you don't know what you want. It's about consent and respect, and is very light and a very thin line, but it's very difficult. But we found that it was a contemporary thing. So the timeless and the period of the film and the scenarios, we decided to go to this place in the north of Mexico, when we do have these beautiful landscapes and wheat fields, and where the lack of education is about that, and it's super contemporary, and it is like places and families stuck in time. The families are timeless. The people that lives in the country doing their thing, and that's it, is timeless. Is something frozen in time. So we decide not to have cell phones and not to give like many things about the period, but I think still it's a contemporary film. It's a classic.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Very, very relatable. All of those you know, touchstones, you know, the naivete, you know, making, you know, sort of earnest mistakes, getting in over your head, and and of course the idea of consent, which, you know, I think is finally being given, you know, proper, you know, intellectual and psychological examination. So we could talk about that all night. But the you know, so one of the other questions I was curious to hear about from a process standpoint is, you know, you were talking about the actresses and how you wanted to capture this very particular transitional stage of life. You know, you're really on the bridge between girlhood and adolescence, and and as you said, it can happen very quickly. And you see these two girls, and one, you said, is like the more Lolita type, and then the other one is the more innocent, sort of clumsy girl, and they're not that different in age, really, you know, maybe a year apart, and one seems so much more sophisticated and traditionally feminine, and the other one seems like still a girl. And you see them, you know, sort of lurching in the same direction. So I'm curious to hear about the casting process for how you want to cast and discover these, how you went about discovering these girls.
Yes, well, it was quite challenging. We saw thousands, not thousands, but
Hundreds.
Hundreds, yes, like 150 girls. And
Wow.
also to find Sylvia, the sister, that she has this
Oh,
delay
yes.
in, I mean, she's immature, but she's not, I mean, the idea is that she wasn't like with Down syndrome or anything. She was just no more delayed on her growing and on her maturity. So she was also one of them. And the idea of the mother that was that it was this woman that left the husband out of her life to take care of this elder sister. So the sister was part of the big challenges of the casting, and the girls. And when we found the girls, we were super happy. We found first Abril, the one that plays Cristina. We never met her before. Once we cast her, we knew that she was doing like a TV show for Amazon or something like that. And she had more, no, she more experience. And then we found Emilia. But we found it the day of the casting, is the daughter of Jean-Christophe Bergeon, which is the former director of the Critics Week in Cannes.
Wow.
And he got married with Arcelia Ramirez, which is a very famous Mexican actress. She's fabulous. And she's the daughter. So it's a girl with cinema in the veins.
Right.
And
right.
the first casting, Annabelle, the director, she had a very long conversation because it was for us the most difficult character. And it's amazing. I mean, her first kiss in her life was Abril, and her second kiss in her life was Alberto Guerra.
Wow.
No, I mean,
wow.
But the mother is a fantastic actress. She was the Ripstein's first film actress, Arcelia Ramirez, the mother. And Annabelle started talking with her, and in a moment I just said, roll the camera. This conversation is something, this girl has something deep. She had like a profundity. Was very, very special in this innocent thing. The casting was like that. And then we picked her immediately, and then we understood like her genes, and it was fantastic. And with Nicolasa, who plays Sylvia, it was amazing because she came. We decided to have because she normally is very beautiful. She's like very, very. I mean, she's 28 years old or something like that. I mean, she's elder and she looks super young, but she's like sophisticated. She was very strange. But I met her and I talked to her a little bit about the character, and I wanted to introduce her to Annabelle because we were not finding her role. And since the moment she arrived to the interview, Annabelle started explaining to her, and then she did, I want to do it. Please give me this opportunity. And then she went, she did a normal cast with a very nice expression that she uses during the film. And then she prepared her character going to APAC, which is the Mental Paralysis Association in Mexico. And she began like working her body and everything.
Yeah.
And I mean, I saw her in the cast, in the first interview, then in the cast that she was okay, but we kept thinking. And then she said, like 2 months after, we were struggling with the dates and everything. And one day she wrote me and told me, I think I'm ready to do a real cast. I want to make this character. And she came walking as she walks in the film, and with this idea of the food and the expressions. And we said, she's perfect. And then we got the three of them. But it was, yes, I mean, but I have to say that Annabelle, she really knew what she was looking for. The story is based on a personal story of her. She lived some years Annabelle is very interesting, the director. She lost the mother and the father. So she grew up on a house in the country in Argentina with an uncle and an aunt, and with a cousin that was her best friend. And they both fall in love with an elder guy, but Annabelle had a tough experience. No, they were kind of abused. And we didn't want to go there. No, all the time we said, okay, what film do we want to do? And we talk a lot about with the girls. And the idea of desire or being in love, since naivety or innocence doesn't mean that you have to be punished. And I think that's the cue of the film. We wanted that everything happened, but nothing happened.
Yeah.
And I think that certainty helped Annabelle a lot to build up the characters with the girls, because they knew all the time that they were able to feel everything for this guy. And Alberto Guerra, the actor, he was also a blessing. And in the moment we were shooting, he was shooting the 3rd season of Narcos with a character super different from this one. But also he said, he read the script and said, it's super difficult. He struggled a lot because he's also a father. But at the end, he said, I'm with you. And I think he really did it. And the relation in between him and Emilia in the last scene, which is super uncomfortable.
Yes.
Tough. And both, I mean, all the set, everything while shooting felt exactly the same as it is editing. And I remember the DOP, which is Ernesto, it's a fantastic DOP. When the scene was on, he said, I mean, he has also a daughter, and he just gave the camera to the assistant and he ran away because there was these peach trees around that house, that location. And he was crying. He said, it was the most awful thing and the most beautiful thing in terms of seduction that I ever shot. I can't forget ever that she's a girl, but it happened.
Yeah.
And if it happened on set, it will happen on screen. On screen, not on screen, on screen. And I kept thinking with that idea. And when I saw it, I said, yes, it happened. Yes,
that
it was really challenging, but very good.
Very, very, very intense. And you know what, I think it's a really interesting and effective, excuse me, creative choice that you have this very intense rendition of sexuality, but then there's nothing graphic that ever happens. And there's a very intense implication and rendition of sexuality, even from the beginning of the film, when the girls are looking at the pictures and they're talking about, you know, what they want to see and their curiosity. Excuse me, but then nothing really exploitative ever happens, which I think is very artful on behalf of the writer-director.
Yeah, yes.
Sorry.
No, don't worry.
Yeah.
So, don't worry.
And I think it's a very impressive accomplishment on behalf of the filmmakers. So I really have to say I loved it, and I'm gonna, you know, certainly spread the word myself. And so anyway, Paola, thank you again for sharing this beautiful film with us. I really appreciate it. I wish you the best with it. And I think that we're going to hear more about it at film festivals over, you know, the coming months. And I'm actually going to do my part to see that happens. So thank you again.
Thank you very much. And thank you to everyone who saw the film. And I really hope you enjoyed it.